My name is Gaj G. I look after the pre-sales team for IBM Cloud Platform in Asia Pacific. And I'm very excited here today to kind of be part of this session to take you through the Power Virtual Server offering on IBM Public Cloud. Now, before I kind of go into the Power offering, I wanted to spend a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about IBM's cloud strategy and how it relates to an enterprise's customer cloud journey. So when IBM started our public cloud journey many years ago, a big focus for IBM has been on a term that I call workload symmetry. So what do I mean by workload symmetry? It really means having the platform capabilities on the cloud that closely mirrors the platform that customers run on-premise. Now, why is that important? It's important because it lowers the effort required for enterprise customers to seamlessly migrate mission-critical workloads from on-prem to the public cloud. So effectively, you're moving a workload from an on-prem environment that's very similar to the environment in the public cloud. So this is one of the reasons why we were the first to announce VMware capabilities on our public cloud 4 years ago, as well as support for SAP HANA and also bare metal infrastructure on IBM Public Cloud. So if you look at point number one in this slide, in the timeline, it helps, our customers who have already got mission critical workloads like VMware running on-prem and move those workloads to the public cloud as seamlessly as possible. Along the way, we also focused heavily on the developer ecosystem. And we wanted to give developers a lot more flexibility on running their code directly on IBM Public Cloud. So using Cloud Foundry, we gave the power to the developers to be able to deploy different types of runtimes. And most recently, we announced IBM Cloud Code Engine, which is a path to kube-native development on IBM Public Cloud as well. Now, if you fast forward to today, we've made a very extensive investment in Red Hat technology, which gives that additional level of capabilities to customers to rapidly provision managed OpenShift clusters on IBM Public Cloud. In fact, last week, we were the first major cloud provider to offer managed OpenShift version 4.5 on IBM Public Cloud. Now, what's really exciting amongst all of these enhancements and kind of just to reiterate Jared's point is our continued focus on supporting those critical workloads that customers run on-premise today. Hence why we've recently announced Power on IBM Public Cloud, which provides customers that ability to seamlessly migrate AIX, System I, and Linux-based applications to the public cloud. Again, a primary focus is to enable those journeys to hybrid cloud as seamless as possible. Now for the team, can we just ask everybody to mute the line, if possible? Thank you. Thanks. So why is Power Systems on IBM Cloud such an important announcement, and what does it mean to our customers? Firstly, it gives our customers the ability to very rapidly provision power compute resources on demand. It provides a very flexible model where resources can be scaled up or down on demand, where we effectively have an hourly billing model, which is charged by the month. So Power on IBM Cloud allows customers to test AIX, IBM I-based workloads, Linux workloads on S922 or E980-based systems, where we can incrementally choose core counts by 0.25 core increments and vary memory capacities as required. So what this basically means is that it gives customers multiple options to support use cases such as test and dev of applications, migrating mission-critical workloads based on variable workload requirements, or support disaster recovery use cases with very, very minimal investment. Now, Power also underpins IBM's hybrid cloud capabilities. Now, we believe very strongly in an open hybrid cloud, hybrid multi-cloud architecture. Now, to support this strategy, Red Hat with OpenShift forms a very, very critical part of this customer's app modernization journey. When you couple that with IBM's containerization software stack, which is our Cloud Paks, you can start to see how customers can very rapidly modernize many of their legacy applications running on Power to more modern, agile, containerized architectures as well. So that's a very powerful message. So you have the ability to run OpenShift on Power on-prem, but very soon you'll also have the ability to run Power Virtual Servers on IBM Public Cloud. And we hope to have that announcement towards the latter half of this month or early next month. So with this recent announcement and strategy, we're seeing a lot of interest overall in adopting Power Virtual Server. So I've spent a lot of time over the last several months talking to customers about workload symmetry, talking to customers about Power, and similar to Jared's experience as well, a lot of customers, especially customers running enterprise workloads, are looking for these kind of requirements where they don't want to necessarily invest in infrastructure upfront. They want to be able to test certain workload capabilities, certain application capabilities on the Power Virtual Server environment. I wanted to share with you a great example of a regional bank that had embarked on a workload migration strategy to Power on public cloud. They had a specific set of requirements. They had data center constraints, and accelerating their move to a cloud was a very, very logical strategy for them. So they were able to minimize their migration and testing effort by being able to embark on a Power Virtual Server strategy, by being able to take some of these applications and test that on IBM Public Cloud. And from a benefit perspective, the core value proposition is that you're moving from a like to a like environment versus going from a like to an unlike environment, which creates a lot of headache and migration effort challenges to customers. Now, what is the Power Virtual Server availability across the globe at the moment? So if I just highlight these red dots here, these red dots represent all of the different regions where we have Power available today. And if I just make a little click here as well, these are the different availability zones and multi-zone regions on IBM Cloud as well across the globe. Now, the key point to note about IBM versus other competitive cloud providers is that IBM owns the backbone networks between a lot of these availability zones. So effectively, the network bandwidth and network traffic between regions across different countries are free of charge for customers. So, and why I'm mentioning this is from a value proposition perspective, if you're a multinational deploying workloads on public cloud and you want to do things like replicate workloads to a DR site, you can do that effectively with minimal costs around network traffic. And that's a very, very strong value proposition for many, many customers. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with IBM Public Cloud, IBM Public Cloud, like any other major hyperscaler, has many, many services. In fact, IBM has over 190 cloud-based services. Now, how does this relate to Power Virtual Server? Now, if you look at Power Virtual Server is one critical offering as part of our set of service options that are available on public cloud. Now, what's really, really valuable to customers who are embarking on a Power Virtual Server strategy on IBM Public Cloud is that you can start to integrate a lot of the application workloads that are running on Power Virtual Server with the broader set of services like our AI capabilities, our storage service capabilities on IBM Public Cloud as well. Okay. Now, with that said, I'd like to kind of get to something more exciting part of the session. So I'd like to introduce my colleague Yefei, who is now going to demonstrate some real scenarios that can help customers deploy mission-critical workloads on Power Virtual Server. So Yefei is going to demonstrate 3 scenarios. The first scenario, Yefei will deploy an AIX test server for development purposes to test MariaDB. Now, this is a very common scenario, especially where customers are looking for test and dev resources, but may not have spare resources, power infrastructure resources available in the data center. So he's going to test that scenario first. In the second scenario, Yefei will deploy the MariaDB Power Virtual Server AIX onto 2 different regional offices in North America and Europe. And in this scenario, he'll demonstrate the global footprint presence of Power Virtual Servers across the globe. As I kind of mentioned before, with that particular map of all the different regional offerings of Power, it's especially useful for companies with multiple regional environments and they have a global footprint, and they may have developers across different regional environments. And in the third scenario, Yefei will be demonstrating the steps to migrate some on-prem AIX 7.1 workloads in physical LPARs to Power Virtual Servers. So this is kind of the ultimate demonstration of a lift and shift pattern for migrating critical workloads to the public cloud. And that'll be an exciting one to see as well. So without further ado, let me hand you off to Yefei to take you through this in more detail.
Thank you, Gaj. Let me show you how I help my friend in this company to achieve his mission through these 3 tasks. Okay, so basically what we are going to do is, in the first task, I will create a Power Virtual Server AIX instance on IBM Cloud and then deploy an open source database called MariaDB. Then the second task is we will capture the PowerVS custom image. Then we will store it into the IBM Cloud object storage. We will use the object storage capability to use this image and deploy it to more PowerVS instances in different regions. Then the third one, we will restore an AIX MaxSB image onto an IBM Power System Virtual Server instance. This is to facilitate to migrating your existing workload from your on-prem data center to the IBM Cloud data centers. Okay, so but I think due to the time limit, we may not be able to cover all the 3 tasks today. But no worry, we will go through the first task and maybe the first half of the second task. Then the remaining portion, we will either arrange another session to go through it with you, or we will send the recordings. Okay, so without further ado, let me start the first task. In the first task, this is a high-level overflow that we will need to perform. Right? Basically, we will need to log into the IBM Cloud. Then we will create a resource called Power System Virtual Server. What this do is, this is like something like a project that you will need to perform, right? So once you have this project, you can go inside to see and create your Power Server virtual instances, right? The second step, we will copy your workstation's SSH key to public cloud. By doing this, you can actually log into the instances without providing the login credentials, right? Then the third step is actually defining a private network. This is an optional step if you don't require any private network to be configured in your PowerVS instances. Then followed by, we will create the AIX LPAR by using the stock image provided by IBM. Okay, in this case, it will be an AIX 7.2. After the instance is up, we will configure the AIX toolbox for Linux applications. This is really a great tool that will consist of a lot of the very popular open source tools that you can find on Linux. And IBM has did the work for you to port them over to AIX. So you can even use YAM to install all those packages just you do on Linux. So in this case, we will also install the MariaDB from this toolbox. Okay, let me show you the actual work. Okay.
Hey, Yefei, I'm going to interrupt you for a while, if you don't mind. So I saw this URL right at the bottom saying that there's something free. Do you want to tell a little bit about it to the audience?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Basically, this is a tab. Okay. So you can see there's a cloud free tier that IBM Cloud offers, right? So as you can see that once you get your account in IBM Cloud, it will be automatically as a Light account. So this Light account actually entitles you to get access to about 40 free services, which including the IBM Watson APIs as well. Then if you are going to upgrade your account to be a pay-as-you-go account, right? Then there's a promotion to give you 200 USD credit, which you can use it for other chargeable services. For example, the Power Virtual Server on IBM Cloud, right? So these free trials, there's no expiration date. So you can actually use it for a long time, right? One of the good service that I would highlight here is, for example, the IBM Cloud Object Storage, right? With the Light Account, you actually entitled up to 25 GB per month. So this is, I mean, quite useful if I want to do some try to store some files on IBM Cloud Object Storage, and you can also utilize it for your Power Virtual Servers, image backup, and also use it for the DR. So here you just provide the IBM ID. If you don't have, you can just register one. It's very easy.
So just to clarify, if you are doing a live demo for this use cases
yes,
that you mentioned.
You are right, yeah.
Wonderful.
Just bear with me. Some of the page you will need to do some rendering, so it may take a while. Okay, so this is a dashboard you will see once you log in. Okay, on the left hand side, if you click this plus button, you will see all the services that offered by IBM Cloud. So the Power Virtual Server is just the infrastructure as a service, one of the service offered by IBM Cloud. There are a lot of other services like those PaaS and IaaS services you can consume from there, right? So in our case, what we are going to do is we will go to the catalog. Remember that we will need to create the project first, right? So we go to these services, because this is an infrastructure as a service, and we choose the compute category. Okay. From here, you will be able to see the Power System Virtual Server. Basically, at this page, you just need to select the region that you want the instance to be allocated on, right? So far, there are 9 different regions that you can choose on. Okay, in Asia Pacific area, we have Tokyo and Sydney. Okay, so there's also those price information that you can find in this page. There's another good thing is the estimate cost feature. So this can actually help you to gauge roughly how much you will be charged per month based on the configuration you specify for your virtual server instances. So you can just do a try here. For example, if we're going to choose the Sydney data center, there are 2 different power hardwares. The S922 is a scale-out server. E980 is an enterprise servers. So obviously, the scale-out server is the cheaper one. Then the E980 is a high-end server. So you can see the differences in terms of the dollar charge per month. Okay, let's just choose, for example, S922 here. The core type, there are different types, the shared, dedicated, and cap. I will explain the details later, but for now, let me just choose the shared processor type. And for the operating system, you can use AIX, IBM I. There's also Linux. For Linux, it's basically currently catered for the SAP workload only. Yeah. So let's assume we are using AIX, and the desired core, for example, we need 1 core and 8 GB. This is very typical configuration. For storage tiers, there are 2 choices. Tier 1, which is the fully NVMe disk. Then tier 3 is the all SSD disk. So if you don't require that kind of throughput and the disk performance, you can just use tier 3. And the storage size, the minimum is 10 GB and go for example, 20 GB. The increment is per GB. You can see from here. So let's choose 20 GB, for example. If let's say we just need one of the instance, let's see how it will charge. Yeah, so basically it will be charged at US dollar, about $200. Yeah, so if let's say you upgrade your account to a paid account, right, you will get the $200 USD free credit, and you can use it actually to do a trial of your PowerVS. Okay, so now let's start the actual work. Okay, for this project creation, it won't start the metering. So basically, this is just to create a project and put it there. We haven't touched the virtual instance creation. Okay, so for this, maybe let me just do a PowerVS demo. Okay. You can specify the tag. This is for you to easily locate your services later. The resource group is default. There's no other choice. But if let's say you have multiple accounts and you create different roles, that you can actually choose other resource group to be put on. Okay, so in this case, let me just, for example, choose the Sydney one. Yeah, so it will take a while to create these services. You can see here. Actually, I already created two previously. One is in London, the other one in Sydney. Then the third one is the one just now we created. As you can see from the status, the provision is in progress now. Right, so I'm not going to wait for this to be complete. Let's just use one of the previously already created project. Then we were going to create the instance.
Okay, so typically that provisioning in progress would take a few minutes, am I right?
Yeah, the creation of the project is usually very fast. A few minutes will do. Yeah.
Okay.
At that stage, we haven't touched to the actual instance, so there's no any charge as for now, right? So just now, as you see from the overflow, right? Basically, you can put in your own SSH key of your, for example, your laptop. Right? So this is quite easy. If I'm not sure if you are familiar with how to get your own public key. Okay, so if you don't have it, you can run the SSH keygen. Yeah, so this is the key of my laptop. So you just copy and paste it into this website and do a new SSH key here. For example, my key. Then just paste it here and add the SSH key. Okay, I already did so it's already here. Then come to the subnet portion. If you just created the project, you won't be seeing all those subnets. So basically, this is for you to create any private network that you want for your the PowerVS instances. For example, if you want to have multiple instances on IBM Cloud and you want to let them communicate each other within themselves, right? So it's better to have a private network instead of going through the public service network, right? Then create the subnet is very easy. So for example, you just put in the name here, my subnet. Then you specify a range of the IP address, as you can see from here. So this can be your on-prem IP address or what IP address that you want to let this PowerVS instance be in, right? So in this case, we can just specify this range. Then the gateway, it will be auto-populated, and also the IP range you can see from here. Right. If you don't want to use some of the IP address, you can actually change it. For example, let's say if I just wanted to use up to 100, you can do so. Then the DNS server is automatically populated as well. So bear in mind that this subnet is the private subnet. So actually, if you are keying this information, another user keying the same information, no need to worry. These are the two different subnets based on the VLAN. So they are using different VLANs. So actually, they can't communicate to each other. Right. Okay. So now let's go to the virtual instance here. To create a virtual instance, you can just give a name and the AIX 7.2 demo. The number of instance, the basic is 1, the default, right? But let's say if you are going to create a cluster servers, for example, if you are using PowerHA on-prem, right? So you need to upfront specify 2. Why so? Because you want to ensure that these two instances are actually anti-collocate each other. So you can specify the different server. So by doing this, you are ensured that these two instances are actually allocated in two different Power Physical servers to facilitate the cluster forming, right? If you don't choose that, let's say you choose just one and you create this instance, and at a later time you create another one, then you are basically rely on your luck to see whether they are on the same physical servers. So that's why it's recommended that if you want to create a cluster servers, you upfront choose the number of instances. Right. Okay, I will go through all these details later. Let me start the provisioning first, because that one will take a while. So let me just choose one. The VM pinning, I will choose off for now. SSH key, this is the one just now I already uploaded. For the OS, let me choose AIX. The image, you can see here you have 7.1, 7.2, and also this one is the custom image that previously I captured, so I'm not going to use this one for now. Let me just use the stock image provided by IBM. So you use the 7.2 image and choose the tier 3 storage. You see the IOPS here. Per GB is 3 IOPS. For tier 1 is 10 IOPS per GB. So for demo purpose, let's go for the tier 3. And profile, you choose S922 first. I will go for the share uncapped. I will explain this later. Let's just provision it first. Okay. I'll give 1 CPU and 8 GB memory. Storage volume, if you don't have data VG for now, you can leave it there because the root VG disk will be auto provisioned by the PowerVC. Right. So at the later stage, if you need to add additional volumes for your data, right, you can do so. So it doesn't matter if you don't create it now. For the network interfaces, I will on the public network for now because I need to connect it to internet, and I also need to access it through the network from my workstation here. Right. If you want to attach the existing private network that you specified earlier, you can do so at this time. So this is the one previously I created. You can put putting auto assign IP address from the IP pool, and you can also manually specify one from the IP range. In our case, we are not going to use the private network, so I'm not going to specify this for now. Okay, so once all these are done, we take a look. Yeah, I think we are good to go. So click this, I agree. And this is a charge, same as the estimation just now we had, right? So we create this instance. Yeah, as you can see there, you are got notified that the creation has been started. This one will take up, I think maybe a few minutes up to maybe 10 minutes in this case. So what you can do here, I think let's go back. I will explain to you what are those different parameters means. Okay. Yeah, it's actually quite fast. This is the LPA has been created, and later you will provision the storage and also install configure the network and install the operating systems. So let me just go back to this page and I explain to you what are the differences in different options. So I think we talk about the VM pinning. Okay, so I think in your on-prem data center, you usually don't have this option. So what this means is, as you can see from here, there are 3 different options. The default is off. So for hard pinning, you can't move the VM. Sorry for that. Okay, if you choose the soft pinning, what it means is it will only move those VM to other physical servers when there's a planned downtime or there's outage, right? So it will be moved to another frame. Then once this home site is recovered, the PowerVC will help you to move this VM back. So in this case, you still can comply some of the application requirement, right? However, if you choose the default one, this is the most flexible one. Basically, what it means is IBM will help you to take care of the the planned downtime and also the unplanned downtime. So in this case, the VM will be moved to another physical server, and you may still run there forever, right? And it can depend on the workload in different physical frames. You can balance the workload by moving some of the VM from this frame to another frame. So if you don't have a very strict software requirement, then I would suggest you to go for the off option. This will give you the most reliability and also the flexibilities. So for the boot image, right, you have AIX. Just now we showed 7.1 and 7.2. For IBM I, you have these three different versions: 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. Right. Then for I, you will need to specify if you need another additional licenses, for example, PowerHA licenses. However, for AIX, if you are going to use PowerHA, you will be bring your own license model. And for Linux, there's a client supplied subscriptions. This is the same. You bring your own subscription or license. Then for the images, currently there's only the SUSE license is supported. The Red Hat Rail is going to be supported soon, so you can expect that. Then for the SAP, different SAP for HANA and also SAP applications, these are also based on SUSE SAP. One more thing I need to highlight here is, for example, we choose the AIX and the image here, right? After you choose the storage tier, you will need to choose your machine type, right? I mentioned that there are two different physical servers in the PowerVS. One is the scale-out server, the S922, right? This one is actually a 20-core machine. So there are some of the core, I think 5 cores has been reserved there to provide services, for example, for VIOS and for the other services may be needed, right? The usable cores per machine is actually only 15 cores, and this amount of less than 1 terabyte of memory. So let's say if you are going to create a very large VM, large than, for example, 15 cores, you may need to go for E980s, because E980 can actually go up to 143 cores, and this amount 16 tera of memories. So this is quite a lot, right? There are also different choices on the processor mode, whether it is a dedicated or shared uncapped and shared capped. So if you are a power person, I'm sure you are not. This is very familiar to you already. But if you are not familiar with power system, right? So basically, what this means is if you are choosing a dedicated processor, you can only specify integer in this entitled CPU, and in this case, your CPUs is dedicated to your VM. It won't be shared by other VMs within the same hardware, right? If you are choosing shared uncapped, basically you can share this. You can actually tweak this the amount to a lower value. For example, it can go as low as quarter of the core, right? So in this case, you can see here the charge will be decreased, and at the same time, you can use the virtual CPUs, because the virtual CPU, it will be round up to the next integer. For in this case, it will be one virtual CPU. So when there's a workload peak, right, you actually can consume the available CPUs within the same frame, up to one physical CPU in this case. If you are going to use, for example, 1.5, it will be round up to 2 virtual CPUs. Then the third option is shared capped. So what shared capped means is actually you can also specify a quarter of CPU or half of the CPU, but you will not use the other available CPU cycles within the frame. So this is most suitable for some of the application requirement in terms of license. Okay, so now I think let's go back to take a look. The instance should be ready. As you can see here, this is the IP address of the server. The machine type is not pinged, right? The size is 1 core and 8 GB. You can get the external IP address this is the IP address you are going to use to log into the system. So in my case, do that. As you can see, it didn't prompt me for the password because I already put in my laptop's public key here. So once we log in, let's take a look of the OS level. Yeah, it's 7.2. There's no problem of this server. ERT-conf. Let's take a look of the configuration. So you can see here, this is a S922A model server, Power 9. This is the serial number of the physical server. Basically, once you log in here, you feel that this is really the same as what you have on-prem. Yeah, so as you can see here, you will have two Ethernet interface and 4 FCS. All these are virtual interfaces through VIOS, right? So for the Ethernet interface, one is used for the management network. The other one is used for the private network. Then if you are going to have the custom network that you specified earlier, right, you will automatically add in another VLAN interface to suit the purpose, right? Just take note that the public IP just now used to log into the system is not aware by these PowerVS instances internally. This is actually outside of the LPAP, right? For the FCS, virtual FCS, there's no way to provision additional. Basically, the SAN and storage are actually managed by IBM Cloud. So these are 4 paths that are already there. So you don't need to worry about the redundancy. Okay, so let me see. Let's take a look of the disk. Yeah, currently we have only one disk here. This is for the root VG. And the default size is 20 GB. Right. So as you can see here, this is a vanilla system. So all these file system size hasn't been increased. So all these are very small, the default value, right? So as you can see here, there's also this, the ISO images has been installed as a file system. So if you need, you can actually install additional file set from this repository. If you don't really need that, actually it's a time you can remove it to free up some of the space that you can use for other file systems. So you can use Smithy if you're familiar with AIX. Basically, this is a Malu-driven administration tool to help you do a lot of administration tasks without using the command line. It's very easy to use, right? So let's just remove this because I don't really need it, right? And I need to unmount it first. Okay, let me just rewrite. Yeah, so this time it's removed. Now let me do some file system increase task. Okay, I have prepared this. So just to increase the file system size to a reasonable amount, I will show you how we can install the toolbox. So on here, as you can see, there's a yum.sh script. You can actually right click it and save it to your laptop. Then from there, you transfer the file to the instance. So I'm going to transfer this file. Okay, once it's done, you can go to here. can just run this the script. So this script will help you to download the package that is needed to configure the YAM on AIX and get ready of the AIX toolbox. So this one is just finished. Then I will do the YAM update to update the packages to the latest level. This is just like you are using Linux if you are familiar with the YAM, right? I don't know maybe whether there's any AIX folks here really use the YAM, but I think this is now available on AIX as well. Yeah.
Yes. That's good update, Yefei. And what I'm amazed is the speed at which things have got done in the last half an hour or so. We have provisioned the ELPA, we've started installing updates, and that's really quick.
Yeah. Imagine that last time on your on-prem solution, right? If you need to provision an ELPA, you will need to talk to the storage team, talk to the network team to gather all the requirement that you will need for this ELPA. And now you don't need to worry about all this. This is basically the infrastructure as a service. So IBM has been taken care of all these infrastructure piece from the physical hardware level until the OS level. So we manage this portion, and the customer only need to worry about the OS and above. This is the command that I use to install the MariaDB. The YAM install MariaDB server, right? So it will, just like on Linux, it will automatically pull all those dependent file set for you and install. Yeah, I think we are good now for the first use case.